think we have to...
Thank you for that very much. I'm always intrigued. I mean, I think of Germany, you know, as they say about people, they may not seek greatness, but sometimes they have greatness thrust upon them. You may not want to lead, but there's no one else. So if someone's going to do it, you'd better do it. This notion, which I think has some value, that Germany just wants to be a big Switzerland, just to kind of get under the eiderdown and do trade and not think about the world, is becoming more hollow, because as you've said very much, both of you, the crises of the rest of the world are coming home. They're unavoidable. Now maybe the Middle East, you can blame Obama, you can blame everyone, but given where we are, and we've talked about refugees, but we haven't talked about terrorism and Islam. One tends to be a function of the other, plus post-colonialism. And I'm curious how Elizabeth and then Norbert feel the European Union is dealing with these two associated problems. They're domestic problems of integration and identity in France, but they're also domestic problems of integration for Germany, as well as being security issues about external borders and screening and how one copes with the other. And also in a third sphere, talking about EU foreign policy, everyone, you know, it's easy to blame the Syrian civil war and the atrocities on many people, but I haven't seen the European Union doing much to help solve it myself. So if you might sort of talk a bit about these related issues, that would be great.
Well, first I must say that because we've had those discussions with Norbert all along those past years, I have observed, especially since the Munich conference, was it in 2014 maybe, or maybe the year before, that there was a will expressed by German officials that they should assume their international responsibilities, not only on economics, but also on politics. Now, there have been progress on that. The last meeting of our defense ministers and foreign affairs minister last Monday reaffirmed the Commonwealth to build a real Europe of defense, which is, of course, complementary to NATO. There's no question about that. And this is a main challenge. What will Mr. Trump do towards NATO? But we have to, and of course, the summit that took place in Berlin between Mr. Obama and the 4 or 5 leaders have reasserted that. So this is one main focus. But it is true as well that there is still a long way to go for Germany in this objective of having more contribution to foreign policy and defense policy. I see no other way than working at more, more coherent policies between France and Germany, because when you add the economic strength of Germany and, of course, the political and military influence of France, then you have something that counts in the United Nations, of course, but also, as we see now, although it's only, a part of a coalition in the Middle East. So it seems to me that we are somehow on the way, and I want to stress that the help of Germany in Mali, for example, because we have not said a word about Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, is one main challenge as far as fight against terrorism is concerned. And I will say that since these questions are related to memories of colonialism and of course, in our internal societies, that it seems to me that we have no choice as Europeans to take care of Africa, not in a colonial spirit, of course, but to help investment. And to do that, and it has begun, especially with Qatar, when you go to Morocco, it's very obvious, for example, but we have to help investment so that we help create jobs for all these youngsters who don't have any jobs, even those who have been to university. This is one main challenge everywhere in Africa, in North Africa and in sub-Saharan Africa. And of course, we tend to see all the threats, and they are enormous, of course. As Norbert said, we have never had such a cluster of crises. But I am not over pessimistic, because I have been chairing the Anna Lindh Foundation for Cultural Dialogue for more than a year now, and it's a foundation that gathers 5,000 NGOs, all between Europe and the south border of the Mediterranean, from Morocco to Turkey included. And we work with youngsters, mainly. And what they tell us in all our works and inquiries is that those, not only a huge majority, but there is a unanimous will to share the values of humanity, which are not, of course, I will not say that there is a common, that we have the same way in looking at democracy, but they want the state of law. And they want those values of humanity to be respected, and we have measured that since we have existed the last 10 years. And if we need to address, the youngsters of all countries, to say to our youngsters who come from the South Mediterranean and from Africa and from Turkey, you have a specific, you have something, that we do not have, because you have some kind of culture in your family history, and there's a lot you can bring to humanity, and on the reverse. And one of the main challenges, since we are bound to strengthen the control of our borders for security reasons, we are bound to do that, and we must do more about that. It's underway, of course, still a long way, but one of the main challenges is that at the same time, we must find legal ways and legal paths for mobility. Because if Europe becomes, a kind of fortress with walls everywhere, inside and towards our neighbors in the south and the east, of course, then it's not Europe anymore.
Part of the problem of being an attractive soft power is people want to come. The power of attraction is very strong. And so there's this kind of schizophrenia, which you've just described, which is both Europe wants to be open to the world, but it also wants to screen the world. That's the nicest way of putting it, and only let in the bits of the world that Europe wants to let in. And that's going to be a very fascinating thing to watch, because there are a lot of challenges, and too many challenges at once tire people. They tire them out. So Norbert, you have Angela Merkel has just said she's going to run again for the 4th term. People describe her to me as tired already, as being more isolated than she's been. She's obviously been wounded by her decision, which you, in your rather elegant way, criticized parts of, which was to have this welcoming culture without a lot of controls to start. Germany's clearly done a pretty good job since then of reestablishing a sense of Ordnung. But does she have the domestic political space going into an election and the energy, do you think, to take this leadership role, particularly on issues of Islam and terrorism?
Mm-hmm. If she could promise, to come back to your earlier question, if she could promise the German electorate to be a big Switzerland, then the CDU would gain an absolute majority. But unfortunately, we have been forced to make the experience that it is a contradiction in itself to be Switzerland and big at the same time. So there is no big Switzerland, and Germany does not have the option to transmogrify into Switzerland. So we have made and were forced to open up our eyes, because also Germany turned a blind eye to the neighborhood, and we could have seen more, but we were forced to open up our eyes to a new reality we are facing. And it happened not when the refugees entered Italy. Then nobody else, including Germany, identified this refugee problem and crisis as a European crisis. And we did not wake up when there were terrorist attacks, something else in Europe or in the United States. But the last year, starting in 2015, with the refugees entering Germany, 1 million we took and have offered shelter and protection to them. At the same time, realizing that there are not only those who want to share our way of life, who want to share Western values, but at the same time, perhaps coming with them and among them, there are people who hate our values, who hate our way of life and want to destroy and kill us. This is a new reality we have to face. And it goes to the foundations of our societies. I'm not absolutely sure, but I think there is some reason to say that was what once was the social question in its implication for society and state building and political landscape in Europe in the 19th century will become the global question in the 21st century. And we will have debates and fights between those who say, no, there is an opportunity to be Switzerland. There is an opportunity to be an island, to cut off, to seek your lot by cutting off this reality we do not have any responsibility for. And the others who say, we have no option then but to shape globalization. We have to face that. And for Germany, and I would perhaps say, yes, at least for Germany, the decision to face this new reality, to take in refugees who are at our borders, to improve our border management, to go to the region, to visit Africa, because the new source of immigration, of course, is not the Middle East, but Africa. So face this reality as a European reality, not as a specific German reality, French reality. I think this is what really has been fundamentally decided, and this is the very nature of the Chancellor, to see that. And in that, she is determined to pursue this course, and she is absolutely convinced that it only can be a success if it turns to be a European position in facing a new reality, not a German position alone. And so she will seek for partners in shaping globalization as far as Europe is affected by globalization, and of course as open societies we are affected on the end of the big range of globalization challenges and opportunities, trade, migration, climate change, terrorism. We have to face it all and to give comprehensive, unified answers. And I think she will remain to play a significant co-leading role in tackling these issues.
I think everyone understands that we don't know what an American foreign policy is going to be because the president-elect doesn't know what it's going to be. He doesn't have a foreign policy because he has never had a foreign policy, doesn't really know how to make one. And one thing, though, is persistent through his career, which is a sense that America's allies are not paying their fair share. This is consistent, and I suspect something he believes deeply, not just in Europe, but in Asia also. And you look at the wealth of the European Union, 500 million until Britain leaves, people. And one wonders if he has a case. Germany, I think, I may be wrong, spends about 1.2, 1.3% of GDP on defense.
1.2.
1.2, which is quite low in terms of NATO's ambitions. And this, is Germany prepared, actually, in response partly to Trump, but also in part in response to NATO's urging to spend more? And can it spend more on equipment that could be collectively used, like air transport planes, refueling, or is this too politically difficult, do you think, right now?
I'm biased because I consider this to be a fair point, that Germany and others has to contribute more to collective security. We have been a beneficiary, particularly of American protection all over the decades of the Cold War. Now we have a different geopolitical situation, and then it is fair that Germany, as an economically successful nation, bears its fair share, and our fair share, not to mention our political obligation out of NATO for more than 14 years now. 2002, we promised to deliver on the 2-point GDP contribution to defense. We have to rise our level of responsibility. This is one element. The second element is, I think we will only do it in an effective way if we start to deliver on the second promise, and this is to bring together European capacities. So it does not make any sense that every European nation state starts to enhance contributions to defense, but doing it in a very, very economically ineffective way, by multiplying our capacities and not pooling capacities. So we have also to start with that. So both challenges we have to start. The Chancellor has started, and this is a change in her language and rhetoric, has started to identify herself with the obligation to rise our level of engagement, and including the financial contribution to defense. It is not really reflected in our budget planning. We will have an increase in numbers, but we are also expecting an increase in our GDP, so that the increase in numbers does not lead to an increase in the percentage share of defense spending. So we will give some additional billions, but it will remain 1.2% of GDP. So this is not an honest deliverance on what we have promised. On both sides, I think, if we want, it's a test case. It's a test case if we as Europeans really get serious on security and on defense, that we prove to be ready to pour money into that which is the fundamental essence of state, and this is providing security for our citizens. And the Chancellor has clearly been outspoken now for some time on that, and I think she does not want to backtrack, but she is preparing that it's now getting serious on that.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
As you know, France is, as far as the defense budget is concerned, is nearing the 2%, not quite. The French president and the French prime minister have committed themselves to get to the 2% in next year or in 2018. We've been increasing our budget for obvious reasons, because we have to face more and more threats, of course. And so we'll see what happens after the French election. But as far as we are concerned, we're committed to that, and we have taken decisions. Now, it's not, and the Americans are right in saying that we have not taken our parts of the burden, and they have been saying that for years and years, whatever president was speaking. Second thing is, of course, what Norbert said about pooling the capacities is absolutely essential, because there is a lot of waste. But there's another, there are two other main challenges for Europe. First is to develop a strategic autonomy on the future technologies. And we have to invest on that. Yeah. And there is a very precise decision to take, is whether we allow the European institution to invest on those future technologies, what we call dual technologies, both civil and military, or not. This is for the European Parliament to vote immediately, and for the next financial pluriannual budget. And the second challenge is the one of strategic autonomy of our defense industry. Because if we don't have a European defense industry, we won't have a European defense. We will always be dependent on, other states, and especially the United States. And therefore, this is something we can't take our part of the burden, having so much finance going to our defense, and say, well, we are dependent on what is decided elsewhere, and especially in the United States, because we might very well not share the choices, especially of Mr. Trump.
One thing that threads through a lot of conversations now is the new Russia. I think we can overestimate the power of Russia. We can overestimate the long-term strategy of Vladimir Putin. We might even overestimate the term in office of Vladimir Putin. The country has issues of oligarchy and corruption, and the economy is sinking. One can't hide these things forever. But I'm very struck, Elizabeth, there was the surprise, perhaps not to you, of the Fillon victory in the first round of the center-right primaries. And one doesn't want to assume, because lots can happen between now and then. But it feels as if a center-right candidate is going to get into the second round. It's probably going to be Fillon. And people talk about Fillon and Putin having a sort of some kind of sympathy on values, on conservative values. And in Germany, of course, we've had a long discussion of Putin-Versteher and the strains among the German industrial sector, but also in politics, of how to approach this newly aggressive Russia. I remember in the Cold War days talking to a consul general of the American government in East Berlin at the East German embassy, Hauptstadt der DDR, and he said, you know, the problem is Germans keep telling me, we understand the Russians and you Americans don't. And I always said to them, yes, you understand them so well, that's why they're on the goddamn Elbe. Now those days are past, but maybe they're coming back again, at least in terms of this anxiety people have in the face of a Russia that is not happy with what you considered a permanent post-Cold War order, and which clearly is not. So I wanted to ask you both, you know, the future of Europe to some degree is about how it relates, at least, to Russia. Some people want a new relationship, some people want a reset, some people say, oh, he can have Crimea, it doesn't matter. Some people say we need their energy anyway. Some people say the Americans are too far away to understand. You know, there's lots of views, but it actually matters again. So this is what I wanted to ask both of you in whatever order you feel like speaking.
Yes, absolutely. I consider Russia to be the number one issue for European foreign policy. It's absolutely number one. And what we see is, to our surprise, that the concept of Europe whole and free is challenged and violated by President Putin. And I think we have to be clear, particularly on that dimension of the challenge coming from Putin. I don't consider him to pursue a policy out of strategy or strength. Right the opposite. It's, in my view, a policy out of weakness. And he has now tapped into a new source of strength, which is popularity. And this popularity comes from his new aggressive policy outside. He has managed to turn the public mood stemming from the collapse of the Soviet Union, for which Gorbachev is blamed in Russia, and then even being topped by Yeltsin. These figures, and since this time, there had emerged a public mood of decline and humiliation. And Putin has managed to turn this mood into the re-emergence of a new collective feeling of Russian greatness. We are back again. We are there, and we force the Americans to acknowledge that we are back on the global stage. And we give evidence that there is no single international crisis which can be solved without Russian contribution. I think this is the core reason for his military intervention in Syria, to create this crisis in order to prove even this crisis in that region can't be resolved by American strength alone. You are dependent on Russian contribution. So this concept, if we accept fundamentally to that, then this would entail an agreement that within Europe there is a kind of Russian influence zone, and the countries within this influence zone do not have the sovereign right to decide upon the course of their country. If Ukraine decides normatively to join the West, not to join the EU, not to join NATO, of course, but to decide in favor of democracy, rule of law, and market-driven economy. And Russia sees that this would encroach into Russia and by that challenge Putin's power. And then he decides not to allow this way. And if we accept that Russia has the final say about the political course of the countries within the influence zone, then we would have a new divide of the continent in the 21st century. And this would, of course, spread across Europe into other regions. It would be an example that not the power of right, the rule of law, but the power of might will be the ruling principle in the 21st century. And so this is a very, very fundamental question about European and international order. And the main spoiling factor in this in our time and for some years ahead is Russia under the reign of Vladimir Putin. He does not have a sustainable strategy for that. There is only one area where Russia is internationally competitive. This is the military. Of course, not the attractiveness, not the economy. It's rather the opposite, because, I think at least, because Putin has come to the conclusion that modernization in Russia is incompatible with his aim to stay in power. Absolutely the opposite to the Chinese way of combining modernization and stay in power. He has chosen another way, and we have to see this fundamental dimension and Western and European, but also Western unity in our position to fundamentally not accept that is our strongest and most important asset.
Thank you. Elizabeth, do you want to speak to this?
With your permission, I will shift to French. You have these. D'abord, je crois.
The popularity of President Putin.
Objectif de réinsérer, de redonner.
The objective of the popularity of President Putin is that he helped overcome humility, which since the Russians were underestimated by Europeans.
Parce que quand l'Ukraine a fait sa révolution, quand il y a eu la guerre en Géorgie, il y a eu un sommet de l'OTAN en 2008, en avril 2008, dans lequel nous avons dit oui, l'Ukraine et la Géorgie, anciennes républiques de l'Union soviétique, à ne pas confondre évidemment avec les États d'Europe centrale et orientale ou avec les pays des Balkans, où la Russie veut encore, j'étais en Albanie il y a quelques jours, veut encore avoir une influence. Ça n'a rien à voir. Donc, quand on a dit l'Ukraine et la Géorgie ont vocation, et nous les acceptons dans l'Alliance Atlantique, ce qui est très différent de les accepter dans l'Union européenne, à ce moment-là, nous avons offert un prétexte en or à M. Poutine pour justement développer une attitude agressive. Alors, évidemment, on peut dire, oui, mais l'Ukraine et la Géorgie ont le droit de vouloir adhérer à l'Alliance Atlantique, certainement, mais les membres de l'Alliance ont le droit et même le devoir de dire, attention, nous sommes quand même sur un sujet géopolitique absolument crucial. Alors, maintenant, on ne dit plus ça, heureusement, mais enfin, vous voyez, avril 2008 et puis août 2008, Poutine envahit la Géorgie quand même. Bon. Alors, qu'est-ce que nous devons faire vis-à-vis de la Russie? D'abord, M. Poutine est là, peut-être pour des années encore, et la Russie est notre grand voisin. Donc, nous devons absolument, évidemment, avoir un dialogue, et un dialogue intense et approfondi, ce qui, me semble-t-il, est le cas. Par exemple, ce que nous avons fait dans ce qu'on appelle le format Normandie, d'ailleurs, le président Hollande, la chancelière, avec M. Poutine et M. Porochenko sur l'Ukraine, ça reste aujourd'hui les accords de Minsk, le seul espoir pour la paix en Ukraine. Évidemment, c'est très fragile, évidemment, c'est pas respecté, mais malgré tout, ça existe. Et ni M. Porochenko, ni M. Poutine ne contestent formellement, en tout cas, cette idée que c'est le seul espoir pour la paix. Donc, il faut être, à la fois, il faut dialoguer, mais il faut être extrêmement ferme. Sur l'Ukraine, il ne peut pas être question, par exemple, puisque vous évoquiez M. Fillon, moi je ne veux pas parler pour lui, je le connais assez bien, puisqu'il est membre de la Commission des Affaires étrangères que je préside à Paris. Mais je connais ses idées. Mais il faut bien entendu parler à la Russie.
With regards to the question of Ukraine, it is out of question that Europeans will lift the sanctions after the invasion of Crimea. If there is a major problem at the world level, then we cannot say that we would open our doors and allow for the change of the borders of states and to accept this to be done to any of Russia's neighbors. This is a challenge and a problem for the Middle East as well. Since you see the attempts to divide Syria. So this is a principal problem, but our aim is not to lift the other sanctions that were imposed after the serious problems in the Donbass. It's true there is a progress towards peace, and maybe then, only then, we could consider lifting sanctions. It is an important responsibility that we as the European Union should shoulder. We have to adopt a policy towards Russia, and this is something we lack currently. It's true that in terms of economy and energy, we have such a policy, but not in politics. Moreover, Mr. Putin is a player in this international game with his involvement in Syria, among others. And we still have to engage with this partner, and that Mr. Putin has a strong sense of powers, of the struggle of powers. He intervened in Syria when he understood that President Obama will not take any action vis-à-vis chemical weapons that were initially used by the regime against its people. So this is a question for the United States. Donald Trump does not give us the idea that he wants to adopt this interventionist policy in foreign affairs. We let things happen, and we took a huge risk to see that in this part of the Near and Middle East, there are states that had already maintained a certain semblance of unity and protected minorities. But if Mr. Putin would decide to intervene in one country or another, it means that they are threatened by Islamist terrorism. We cannot but engage in a dialogue with President Putin on different questions. Thank you for this question.
Satisfying Russia's need to have its dignity restored without giving away too much influence and territory. And that's going to be the dilemma, to take it seriously, but not take it so seriously that you surrender. That's the problem, always. The last topic before we go to some questions. The euro crisis isn't over. If you look at Portugal, their credit rating is really iffy. There's people talking about a new bailout of Portugal. Growth is weak in the Eurozone. Greece isn't finished. It's not a very good time in Germany to start talking again about Euro bonds and things like that. And in France, obviously, there's a big challenge from the Front National, which is very anti-European, partly on the basis of the money. The AfD is about the money, now about migrants. Are you worried that there could be a new Eurozone crisis in the middle of all this? It worries me. I'm just curious, very briefly, if it concerns you and if you expect one, or will it be suppressed as usual?
For me to...
Like.
Évidemment, une autre crise est toujours possible, bien sûr, et spécialement parce que, souligné, nous avons une croissance mondiale qui ralentit.
كما ذكرت لدينا أزمة متباطئة ولا يمكن مثلا كنا نقول للصين أن عليها أن توقف عجلة النمو ولكن الآن توقفت كنا نحث الصين على أن تسرع من عجلة النمو ولكنها وقامت بذلك. حاليا نحن لدينا نمو ضعيف هدفنا بالتالي هو أن نعزز الوحدة النقدية. نحن لم ننتهي من هذه الوحدة المصرفية فيما بيننا وحتى ولو تقدمنا في هذا المسار ما زال لدينا الكثير للقيام به لناحية الودائع وأيضا صناديق التعاضد وغير ذلك. إذن طبعا لقد أرسينا بعض الأسس القوية وبدأنا بتشاطر بعض المخاطر ولكننا لم ننتهي بها وقمنا ببناء نوع من الوحدة الاقتصادية ولكننا لم ننتهي بعد وقلنا أنه يتعين على الجميع أن يتولى مسؤولياته. فرنسا مثلا عليها أن تتولى مسألة حل العجز كما تقوم به حاليا لأننا في الواقع علينا أن نبقى بحدود 3% كحد للعجز في السنة المقبلة. حاولنا أن نبقي هذه النسبة في إطار معقول ونجحنا في تثبيت الدين. لم نلغيها طبعا ولكننا إذا ما أخذنا التوجهات في السنوات الماضية استطعنا أن نثبت الدين وقمنا بإرساء أو باعتماد إصلاحات هيكلية منها إصلاح نظام أو سوق العمل. إذن هذه مكتسبات للمستقبل. آمل أن هذا الأمر لن يتم التشكيك به إذا ما تغيرت الغالبية. وأنا أسمع مثلا من السيد ألان جوبي مثلا ومن أشخاص آخرين بياناتهم في هذا الشأن. علينا أن ننتظر لنرى مثلا في حال فاز اليمين إذا ما الذي سيقوم به أو إذا كان الدين سيخفض لأن الأحزاب اليسارية هي التي فازت في المستقبل. بالنسبة هذه كلها أمور سوف تحل بعد الانتخابات المقبلة ولكن علينا أن نحفز النمو. ولدينا أيضا ألمانيا التي تنظر في اقتصادها. عندما نتكلم إذن عن فائض في أوروبا في الميزان الخارجي كبير جدا في ألمانيا فينبغي فنحن نهنئ أنفسنا فنحن نعيش في هذه الوحدة الاقتصادية وبالتالي علينا أن نأخذ هذا في الاعتبار. لا يمكن أن نأتي بالمال ونوزعه بطريقة عشوائية على الدول. لا ينبغي أن يكون هناك استثمارات أكبر في ألمانيا في أوروبا بشكل عام في مجالات عامة وإلا سوف نبقى في موقع ضعيف جدا. وعلي أن أقر بأننا سنكون ضعفاء ماليا واقتصاديا واجتماعيا لأن أعداء أوروبا وأعداء اليورو سيقولون ما هي أوروبا هذه التي تقوم بطلب التقشف منا على الدوام. إذن علينا أن نتعاون مع بعضنا البعض وأن نرسي توازنا فيما بين التضامن فيما بيننا وأيضا التحلي بمسؤولياتنا الخاصة. إذن أمامنا تحدي كبير علينا أن نقوم به. إن أزمة اليورو قد بقيت غير محلولة حتى الآن. لم نحقق ما يكفي من الوحدة أو التكامل الاقتصادي، وحتى أننا لم نسر في هذا الاتجاه. إذن لم نستطع أيضا أن نكون مرنين كفاية إزاء الأزمات. إن الأزمة التالية سوف تأتي ولكننا لا نعرف متى. هل هذا في المستقبل المرتقب أو إذا كان لدينا نوع من المرونة تجاه أو للتكيف مع الأزمات أو لا. إذا كان هذا الموضوع سوف يطرح أزمة في مجال اليورو ولكن أيضا أوروبية وسوف تؤثر على ألمانيا، ستحملها على اتخاذ قرار صعب جدا بالنسبة لإيطاليا. والأزمة الممكنة في 4 ديسمبر سوف يجري استفتاء وعلينا أن نتوقع نتيجة سلبية في هذه الحالة. هذا سوف يزيد من المزيد من انعدام الأمن السياسي وانعدام الأمن الاقتصادي، وربما سوف يكشف هذا الموضوع على الوضع السيء لبعض المصارف الإيطالية، ومن الممكن أن يفضي ذلك إلى أزمة. وسيكون هذا العنصر عنصرا معطلا في العام 2016. أنا لا يمكنني أن أفقه كنه المستقبل، ولكن علينا أو يمكن أن نحلل أنه ينبغي أن نقلق في حال جاءت نتيجة الاستفتاء سلبية من الناحية السياسية الأمنية والاقتصادية. شكرا لك. لم يعد